Welcome to Ghost Chat and Other Paranormal Things. I'm your host, Electric Elisa.
I'm your other host, Jody. Hello.
And today we have my good friend Alex, who is going to share some of her paranormal experiences with us.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me
Welcome.
on.
Yay. So do you want to start with where, well, when do you think you ever first experienced anything?
Whenever, I know, I'm sure that there were things earlier than the time that I wanted to talk to you guys about, but I think like the one that stands out most in my mind is when I was finishing up college in our
Mhm.
house.
Yeah.
The one I talked to you about before, but now that you asked me that question, I'm like trying to scan through my mind of things, and I don't know. We were kind of talking a little bit earlier about the sleep paralysis thing, and I
Mhm.
did that experience in high school. I call them the Dementors now, but back then there was no word for that because Harry Potter hadn't come out yet.
No.
That's really scary. I remember like just feeling stuck and seeing these Dementor things coming at me, and I was freaking out when my body finally got unstuck. I bolted, like jumped and flew to my parents' room across the house and
Mhm.
jumped into bed with them like full grown teenager, just like snuggled up between my parents.
Oh, wow.
Well, yeah. And at that age, you wouldn't know what that was either.
Yeah,
And even if you do, when you're in the middle of it, you're not thinking about that.
yeah.
You're thinking about trying to get up and
Hmm.
move and say something or yell, and you can't
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that is exactly how it is. And you can hear, like, when I had it happen, my family was up. I could hear them in the kitchen.
Hmm.
And I wanted to get up and hang out with them, couldn't do it.
Oh God, it is so scary. And I remember like the more I was unable to do, like move, like scream, the more terrifying that whole situation became.
Yeah. Yeah, because then it feels like you're suffocating.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. So yeah, just thinking back to that,
Did
but
you see
first
did you see an entity or anything or some kind
I
of spirit?
did. I did. That's why I call them the Dementors. It was just like that. It was like this dark, black, like floating thing that was like hovering over me. And it felt like it was like sucking out my soul. It was, and like Elisa said, it feels like you're suffocating. And I think, that piece of not being able to move, that feeling of not being able to scream probably gives off that impression that like you're suffocating and it's
Yeah.
sucking something from you.
Because you feel like you're panicking, I think, is why that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And so it was so uh, in shocking and surprising to me when I watched. I think they first appeared in the third Harry Potter movie, but when they first appeared and I saw them there, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I saw." Except for the hands, they didn't have hands in what I
Hmm.
experienced. But other than that, I was like, "Oh yeah, that's what that was."
Well, a lot of people describe having seen shadow people or shadow
Mhm.
beings when they're having that.
Yeah, and it's so strange.
Yeah. It is a weird thing.
Hmm.
But I mean, so is sleepwalking. So,
Yeah.
My daughter's a sleepwalker.
oh no.
She has scared me so bad.
It is
Sometimes.
freaky.
Yeah,
Yes.
because she gets up and she speaks a language that's like none of the languages we speak at home. And it's not English, it's not French, it's not Spanish, and she's just talking at you and looking at you in your eyes. Oh, she gives me chills sometimes when she gets up and sleepwalks.
But is it a real language that she's speaking?
Not not that I'm aware of. Not, it'd be interesting to pull out my Google
Google
Translate next
Translate? Yes.
time. See if it's actually like she's speaking like Aramaic.
Yeah.
You should record her. Or you should try that if you think of it. I
Yeah.
know, anytime these things or weird things happen, That
It's
that isn't
unexpected.
what I'm thinking about
No.
doing. I'm like, huh?
Especially in the middle of the night, you're kind of just like,
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
disoriented.
yeah. That's weird.
Yeah.
Uh, um, so after that, though, I know something happened to you when we were working together.
Yeah. So we worked together when I was in college, and during that time, something started happening in our family home. I was still living at home with my family, and it was something. It was like a presence that just progressively got darker and darker. And for background, we come from a pretty conservative Catholic family, so these types of things are pretty taboo, and we don't talk about them. And apparently, we had all been experiencing different things and keeping them to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until things got really bad that we finally started to turn around and look at each other and go, so that's not just me. So the way that it first started, that for me, was one day I was on my way out the door. I got in my car and it felt like somebody was in the back seat. I was in the driver's seat and it felt like somebody pulled my hair back.
Ooh.
And I freaked out. I turned around, looked in the back. There was nobody in the back, and it was really, really, really scary. So I freaked out. I got out of the car. I went into the house. And when I went into the house, I was chasing my dad. I was like, Dad, 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 where are you? I knew my dad was home. And someone was like, what is it? And he was in his room. So I went practically running into my dad's room, chasing him into his closet area. And as I was kind of crossing the threshold from their bedroom to the bathroom, I felt like somebody pushed me backwards.
Oh
And
wow.
I was like, what just happened? I got pale, I was cold, and I like grabbed my dad and I was like, Dad, I'm so scared. I felt someone pull my hair. My dad's like, maybe you're just really tired. And he seemed kind of nervous, and my dad's usually a pretty stoic person. But he seemed a little nervous. I was like, Dad, I swear somebody just pushed me and they pulled my hair. And he was like, I think you're tired. And I was pretty freaked out. He calmed me down. He was like, it's okay, Alex. And the less you give power to these things by believing in them, like, the better off you'll be. Like, whatever's happening, just ignore it. And so I was like, okay. So I like got in my car, left, and nothing happened for a little while. And then one of my sister had a baby and was living in the house with her baby, and we had like lots of little baby and toddler toys, and one of them was this little like Disney cube that had like Donald Duck and Mickey recordings, and they would say numbers and stuff. And the cube one night just started going off by itself.
Ooh.
And we didn't have like loose pets in the house that could be hitting it or anything, but it would just start to go off by itself. And my parents tried to explain it away, like, oh, maybe it's, the change in the atmosphere outside, that kind of stuff. And so they kind of tried to explain it away. But then the cube started doing kind of stranger and stranger things, to the point that my dad clipped the electric wires in it and like said enough. And so he had to clip the wires in there. During this time, my brother and sister had also been experiencing things. They'd been seeing like shadows walking in the around the house. They'd been seeing like somebody walk by a hallway, and they'd turn around and they'd see that someone had walked by, but nobody was there. And everybody again was kind of keeping things to themselves until one night. This is kind of like the final straw. We had a little rat terrier, and he used to sleep in his room like with the door closed at night. But one night we were all about getting ready to go to bed. Everybody was hanging out in the main living area. It was like the kitchen, living, dining space. And all of a sudden, the dog starts barking at something up high, and he's growling and his hairs are sticking up, and he's looking up and he's growling and he's barking and he's walking backwards, and looking up at this thing that nobody could see. And then I remember my sister and I kind of turned and looked at the microwave, and when we looked at the microwave, we saw the reflection of something dark walking in the direction that the dog was looking at. And we start crying. We were really scared, and my dad noticed that my dad was in the kitchen too. And so after this event happened, like after a minute, like we were able to like, it's like the dog kind of like let it go, and we calmed the dog down. Everybody kind of calmed each other down, and that's when that night my parents talked and said, okay, we've got to do something about this. Things are getting serious. And that's when everybody like kind of sat down and said, I've been seeing this. This is my experience. Like, and so everyone kind of just started sharing little experiences that they'd all had of like seeing somebody that wasn't there, feeling bad energy at times. My mom had sometimes like been walking and she would suddenly feel like really sad for a little bit. So like we had all been having all these different experiences. And so once we talked it out, we have some friends that are, I don't know how to call them, but they're people that are very devout Catholic friends that came from Haiti. So they also have experience with some of the other kind of arts out there. And they know, they go around and like do healing prayers for people and those types of things.
Okay.
Yeah, and they knew of a priest, a French priest, that did, why am I forgetting the word right this second? What's that word again? When there's like
Exorcism?
evil things. Exorcism, yes, thank you.
Okay.
He does exorcism. I'm like,
I was wondering if it was another word or a French word.
no, I'm like, it's the word and it's escaping me right now.
Yeah, that's okay. It happens.
Yeah. Especially as we get older.
Yes.
So this priest did exorcisms. So we called our friends, and they said, you know, it sounds like there's something in your home that we need to get out. So they called the priest, who agreed to. He flew in from somewhere else to do this exorcism on the house. They made the three of us kids leave the house for the day.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want us in the home in case it should follow us or anything like that. And our friends came, the priest came, and my parents were in the house. And so they walked around the house and they did holy water and something else that I had not heard of before as being a Catholic thing. It might have been sage, but they kind of combined some Catholic stuff with some stuff that I'd not heard about in the Catholic Church before. And they walked around and did this exorcism of the house. And what the priest told my dad is when they got upstairs, they noticed like a thick black smoke leaving the house.
Wow.
And so what the priest told my parents afterwards was based on the description of the things that we had experienced, the things that it had been doing, the fact that it had physically touched us, you know, pushed and gotten physical. He actually believed that it was not a spirit, but a demon that had entered our house and that we had a demonic possession inside of our house.
Scary.
That was very scary. After that, everything calmed down. We never had issues again in our house. And the interesting thing, at least I'll comment this to you, I don't know if you remember this detail, but when we were working on the crisis floor, there was some priest that had been Baker acted, who was like, that was what his specialty was doing like demonic like exorcisms. And it was after he was on the floor that we started having these experiences at our house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I always blame it on him.
Lisa, I think you're on mute. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, I had to mute it. The dogs were barking. I don't remember that. Wow. That's creepy.
Yeah.
Wow. I know that we had, yeah, I mean, I know there was a lot of people that were superstitious. We've had a few of those, but, wow, that's creepy.
Yeah.
But it worked. They came and they got rid of it.
Yes. It's been many years now. I think like 16, 17 years at least. And nothing again since.
That is, yeah. Yikes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, sorry, they woke
That's
up. They're not supposed to wake up right now.
you're not you wait.
Hold on.
So yeah, that is very scary. But was there anyone that was like influenced by like a possession or anything by what was going on? Somebody started acting strange or anything like that?
Well, I mean, you asked that question and it just came to me. I've always chalked it up to my sister's mental health, but now that you say that, that was probably the period in my life where my sister was acting out the most.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, acting out very angrily at home, getting into significant amounts of trouble and those types of things. So that is actually, I've not ever asked that before, but after that, she calmed down a lot.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Speaking of sleep paralysis, I had an experience as well. I just remember I was on a couch and I was sleeping, but I was trying to wake up and I just couldn't move. I didn't see anything, but I did feel pressure on my chest, like something was sitting there. And I was trying really hard to wake up. I was trying just to jerk myself awake or something. And I was having a lot of trouble, but I finally managed. This was some weird house in Manhattan, Kansas, where a lady had passed away. And
Ew.
I just saw the curtain behind me move to the fan, and it kind of freaked me out a little bit.
Uh,
Yeah, it kind of freaked me out too. I was like, "What? What was that movement?"
I think it's just the fan. I just saw
yeah.
movement. I'm like, I'm getting a little freaked out when it's talking about this.
We're telling ghost stories and fans are moving
Yes.
curtains, pranking us over there.
Yeah, but I think your story, Alex, is one of the creepiest I've ever
Hmm.
Yeah.
heard from somebody.
It was a really scary time. It went on for a few months of just like things happening, weird things happening. And I think it took us so long, like, because it was so taboo, we didn't all just sit down and
Hmm.
talk about it.
Hmm.
I think we would have probably dealt with it a lot faster if it wouldn't have been taboo.
Well, it seems like with a lot of people, if this is happening and there's like a family there, this is not unusual. Like people will
Yeah.
be like, "Oh, I must have just imagined that," or
Hmm.
you just write it off as it's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But I
easy
will
to do
say,
that.
I do think there is something to ignoring it. I think that does tend to help. I don't know if it means it's not there or not. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I also think if you're really busy, you're not going to notice as much.
Hmm.
But that
You're
doesn't mean
distracted.
right. But that doesn't mean other people in the household won't.
Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
that's true.
There seems to be something to that. But again, if whatever it is wants to be seen or noticed, that's it's still going to try.
It will make
Mhm.
itself known. Yeah.
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 And then I know you had um I know that when you had the one house in
Ah, yes.
you would hear things like footsteps or something and your pet, your dog
Yeah.
or your cat, I don't know.
I think it was the dog in that
Yeah,
house.
I
So
think
this one wasn't as scary.
no.
So yeah, so that one was after I was married. And of course we were living right by Casadega, which is like the spiritualist capital
Right.
of the country, if not the world.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that happen there. I think we're like less than 10 miles away from there. And I'd been told that that specific area where we were living was like an old camp where slaves lived in the old days,
Oh.
and a lot of like bad things happened in that area. So, and then before that there was like Native American lands again too. So it's ancient lands where a lot of people have lived and lived
Mhm.
through a lot of different things. But in that house, oh, I do have one night that I was very scared. Again, nothing as scary as the other one, but
Right.
um, we would often hear footsteps happening, somebody like walking down the hallway. But this one didn't seem like malicious. It was just like there was somebody else in the house.
Mm.
Uh, there was a specific part of the house that would often be a different temperature. It had like a different energy feel to it, just different than the rest of the house. Um, it was often around the same time every night, around I think it was around 2 o'clock in the morning that we would hear things happening around the house. There was one night that I got scared. I was home alone, and outside the house, it started sounding like somebody was like on the
Oh.
doorknob, and
Mm.
yeah, and it started sounding like there was somebody walking around outside my house. I got really scared. I like pulled out a knife and was like hiding in the kitchen, calling, like, "Help! When are you coming home?" Um, but there was never anything bad that ever happened with that one. But we did I think I talked to you about that one. Elise was
Mm-hmm.
like, "What do we do?" And we did we called your friend Patricia,
Yeah.
right? And she told us to do a stage cleaning, and she also gave me, I call it the prescription of like different essential oils to blend together and spray around the house to kind of cleanse the house. So Um, we did that, and things got a little better. I didn't hear footsteps anymore. But that one, I'm wondering if like there wasn't really too much anything malicious happening there, and it was just
Mm-hmm.
a little
Yeah.
energy I was hanging out.
Right. They were just like, huh, this is
Yeah,
interesting. I don't
yeah,
know.
Yeah.
Who knows? I
yeah.
mean, I know, yeah, I always, like, I bring up the thing about Casadega being so close to where we lived because we were like 10 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
And that there were other people in that neighborhood who also experienced things. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like,
Oh wow.
That Casadega area is like a hot spot for weird things happening all of the time.
but when I've been to when I would go to Casadega, like I went sometimes, and I never really experienced anything while I was there.
Me neither. And I've been a few times to Casadega because
Hmm.
now we're even closer.
Oh,
Now we moved, and Casadega is like less than 2 miles down the road. It's a
oh
5 minute
wow.
drive to like the Casadega Hotel from my house.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and there's never been anything weird anytime I've gone recently.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, I mean, it also makes me wonder because I know that your realtor told you that about possible
Mm-hmm.
burial grounds and things like that. And I was
Yes.
like, huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah. It's interesting. Most realtors don't really talk, and this one didn't seem like someone who would talk about that. So something must have happened before something for her to take the time to tell us about those
mhm.
possible burial grounds where we were living at before.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
Um, our realtor wasn't from the area, so she wouldn't
Uh,
have known. And then also, but I did actually, I went with a friend who was looking for houses for her sister and her family to move, and we went into a house that was it had been featured on, oh gosh, that show that used to be on Discovery. It was like a haunting or something,
Mm.
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
if I can remember. Anyway, that house was for sale, and we actually went to it because we
Mm-hmm.
were
Oh wow.
curious. I didn't really get any feeling from it, but of course, I mean, you're walking through and it's in the afternoon and it's sunny, and but I would
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
think that it would. I mean, I'm sure that whatever had been in there is probably not there anymore.
Yeah.
But that realtor actually, because my friend, she's like went and told the realtor, "Did you know that?" And the realtor is like, "Yeah, I don't get any feeling from that house either." But she goes, "I have been in some." that I've seen actual apparitions.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, oh, and she was telling us about that, but I was like, oh.
Wow.
And lately, there have been all those movies. There's been movies out about realtors
Mm-hmm.
selling haunted houses. I'm like, that would be really creepy because they go and look at the house, and in these houses, there's like nobody there, nobody like living there. So then you're all by
Yeah.
yourself, and I'm like, that's creepy.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
But I
Yeah.
mean, you worry about other things too, and like I don't think many of them go late at night either because that just wouldn't be smart.
No.
Hmm.
But
Nope.
ugh.
That movie Haunted Mansion with Eddie Murphy in it,
Oh.
that's Eddie Murphy plays a realtor in it
Hmm.
who's trying to sell the mansion.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Have there been any other homes that you've
Or
lived in
any
with some
other
strange
places?
experiences?
For me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, those were the only two times in my life, and I think I'm pretty glad for that because that's really scary.
Yeah.
Um, Stayed in a hotel once. This is kind of my last personal ghost story. um, when I was in college, I forget why we were going down to Fort Lauderdale, but I was going down with my mom and my siblings, and so I was trying to book like a nice looking hotel. And this was back in the day when I was like really into like retro kind of places. And I saw in a magazine at the doctor's office I worked at like this hotel that had won prizes and stuff like that. And so I looked it up online, and it was a really good deal, really good price for being right on the beach. I
Hmm.
didn't double think why I would have such great deals in Fort Lauderdale on
Yeah.
the beach. I just booked it. And so we got there, and it had like that fun 1920s kind of feel to it. It had been built in the 1920s. So we stayed there that night thinking we were just at a cool vintage hotel.
Yeah.
And that night my brother and sister and I started hearing like children crying in the hallway, and at one point we opened the door, there was no child. Our
Oh.
Oh.
room, like the temperature fluctuated a lot in our room. Um, there was a couple of other things. Like I think we felt movement in the halls. It was mostly in the halls, and there was nobody there. I forget now which floor we were on. If I told you a number, it honestly would be me guessing.
Yeah.
Um, but we went home, and like my brothers and sisters and I, it was like the running joke for a couple of years that like, remember we stayed in that haunted hotel, remember? And it was like the running joke. And then one day I saw in a journal article like the most haunted hotels in Florida, and that hotel that we had stayed in was one of the most haunted hotels in
Oh my
Florida.
gosh.
And the floor
Wow.
that we had stayed on, because back then I remembered the number still, was one of the haunted floors. And it was like that floor, and like the like maids area was haunted too. And like I guess some people had died on that floor. Like, and
Hmm.
so I was like, oh my gosh, we've always joked, but it's actually haunted.
Oh
Our
wow.
imagination. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, we stayed there having no idea, but it was haunted.
Wow. I don't think we've ever stayed in a haunted hotel. I mean, we stayed in some place that was supposed to be haunted, but nothing happened.
I was gonna say, I thought you went to a place that was
We
supposed to be,
did, but we
but
didn't
nothing happened.
no.
Well, you should just go to the one in Fort Lauderdale. Expect nothing, get the full show.
Right? I don't know. I'm not sure how I'd feel about that, to be
Yeah,
honest. I
yeah.
mean, that's
I've heard of a lot of places in Fort Lauderdale that are haunted, but that's a pretty hot spot, pretty big hot spot for hauntings and
that's
strange occurrences.
yeah. I don't think we ever stayed in Fort Lauderdale.
Is that
Mm.
the town that has a lighthouse? Does it have a lighthouse in it?
No,
Jupiter.
St. Augustine.
There's St.
St.
Augustine and
Augustine.
Jupiter. Hmm.
Yes, I've heard about St. Augustine
Yeah.
St.
Lighthouse.
Augustine is very haunted. They have a haunted ghost store, ghost tour. Ghost
Yeah,
Oh,
tour.
cool. Ooh, I'd love to
I've
go on
been
that.
on it years
Oh,
ago.
wow.
Um, and that we've been at the in the lighthouse and everything, but I never experienced anything. But the lighthouse is supposed to be as well. But I know
Huh.
people have stayed places there that were.
Hmm. Yeah, I think pretty much every place in St. Augustine is haunted.
Wow.
It's yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm hearing that about there's a lot of places around this area that are apparently as well. So
You
I
gotta
think
go.
you have a lot of UFO sightings there too, where you're
Hmm.
at, Elisa.
yeah, I know that's what Debbie tells me too, and I don't see I haven't
Not
seen
yet.
any.
Yeah, not yet. That's the key
Maybe,
word.
maybe you will.
I mean, we're near an airport, so
Mm.
uh, and then there's also a military base. So I mean,
There's
there's a
always
lot of
something in the
planes
sky.
and
Yeah.
helicopters and things, and so not yet. I don't know. I mean, I guess it'd be interesting, but I I think our tendency to second guess ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's really strong with me
Mhm.
to be like logically. I mean,
Yeah.
reason. Oh, I'm sure it's just a plane, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how most of us would think.
yeah, or a drone, or
We want to make sense of it.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and I mean, I don't know. It would be interesting, but yeah, haven't seen anything yet. And
Mhm.
the only thing going on here so far, sometimes people have loud parties across the wash, and you can hear
Oh,
them. And fortunately, they're better than they were. But it was like I shouldn't be able to hear this inside the house.
yeah.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, I feel like a lot of things in Florida are haunted in
Hmm.
general.
Yeah. I heard a lot of stories about Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's an old place, and if you think about it, there are natives here that lived here for thousands and thousands
hmm
of
Mm-hmm.
before the Spaniards came, and then everybody else after that.
yeah,
So there's a lot of history that's not recorded here.
hmm yeah,
Oh, it
and
makes.
there's a lot of neat places to visit.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, I feel like there's a lot of places though in the Midwest too, because that's where I experience stuff too.
Yeah.
So
Even where
it's
we're
like,
from in Kansas,
uh,
I can't even think of the places now in Kansas. There's a lot of Native American towns names,
mhm.
Kansas town names, and a lot of those are haunted. I can't even think of the name of this little towns now. But
Yeah,
if you Google, you'll see quite a bit of hauntings in Kansas and Florida.
Yeah.
Florida though, I feel like it was the most haunted place I've lived.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Um, go ahead.
I was going to say, Alex, did you have anything else? Any other stories that
No, those are my
experiences?
three ghost stories.
Nice. We'll have to have your husband on
Yes.
Yeah,
soon.
absolutely. He has so many stories. You could have him on a couple of episodes.
Yeah,
Wow, cool.
that
He
would
comes
be
from
good.
a very cool place that has a lot of history too, and he comes from a family background that's kind of open to things. So I think when you're more open, you're less likely to just cast it off to the side, and so
Hmm.
you're more aware of these experiences.
True, and
Yeah.
I think like American society tends to, although there's a lot of people who do believe in this stuff, there's
Hmm.
we're kind of brought up to discount a lot of things and
Hmm.
Hmm.
say that it's has to be proven by science,
Yeah.
and you can't always do that with everything. um,
No.
I like what one of my coworkers, former coworker supervisor said was that you can't measure what you don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
True.
And
Mm-hmm.
that was coming from someone with a medical background.
Yep. Yeah, I think, science can't explain everything. Science and exactly what that saying says is so perfect. We're not there yet.
No,
Mm-hmm.
no.
So,
And they're finding out things that they thought they knew. Oh, well, we got to change that.
Yeah.
hmm yeah.
None of that stuff I understand because it's something to do with, I don't know, dark matter and all this stuff. I don't even,
Mm-hmm.
that's too much for my brain, but I don't even know what that is.
Mine too.
But I think, you know, it's important to look at things, just as you see them, but also, yeah, it's important to also, figure out, is there a logical cause of this? Is there something, that is perfectly, something from the environment? But at times, when you rule out all of those things and you still
Mm-hmm.
don't come up with an explanation, then, you end up where you are.
Yeah, that's true.
And I mean, I think many people have seen those dark shadow people or
Yeah.
things or beings, and they're creepy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you don't see them necessarily when you're having sleep paralysis either. I mean, there's a lot of information out there that says, "Oh, it's related to sleep." No, not if you're awake and
Mm,
walking around
Yeah.
and haven't gone to bed yet.
exactly. Exactly. Much like
And
what
right,
yeah. Right in the middle of the evening when the whole family's awake.
Yep.
yeah. Um, so I really appreciate you being on, Alex.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll have
Happy to
to,
be here. Thank you for having me on.
yeah, and this will, I'll edit it and it'll be out soon.
All right.
Could be out today.
okay.
Um,
I can't wait to hear it. I'll play it for Carlos. So
and
There you
if
go.
you want to email us at
Yes, at the spooky sisters 666 at gmail.com. If you have any stories or experiences that you've had, we'd love to have you on the show, or we'll read your story in the show, whatever you prefer.
yes. So, all right. Later, and we will see you next
We'll see you next
episode.
time.